Hello and welcome to 10 Lenses. I'm Adam Thomas. Before I begin, I want to apologize that my shirt is almost the same color as this green chalkboard. So with that out of the way, we're going to talk today about a couple of different ways of reading the Bible, culminating in something that you might not expect given what we've done for the last 7 weeks, which is look at all these lenses through which to read the Bible. Today we're going to talk about a 3-part progression for reading a passage of the Bible. The first part is what I call a critical reading. The second is a personal reading. And the third is a reading with a blank slate mentality. So let's get right to talking about each of those 3 readings. During 10 Lenses, we've talked about all sorts of things. We've talked about translations, we've talked about layout of a biblical page, we've talked about our passages, we talked about genres and parallels and allusions, and using commentaries to look at historical context. All of this stuff we bring to this first reading, this what we call a critical reading of the passage. I call this a critical reading not because we're trying to tear the Bible apart like a critical review might do to a movie. Rather, the word critical here means using critical thinking, a way of analyzing a biblical passage using all of these outside resources. The second level of the progression moves from the critical to the personal. Instead of reading with all of these outside resources helping us, we read the passage using all of our internal baggage, all of the events of our life that have led up to the reading of this passage of the Bible. Perhaps this baggage is good, perhaps it's bad, probably it's going to be a combination of both. Think about it this way. Perhaps your grandmother used to read you Psalm 23 every night before you went to bed. Or perhaps one day you walked by a street preacher who condemned you because you were wearing shorts and used a particular passage of Scripture to do so. Each of these experiences is going to leave a mark on us, one positive, one negative. A great example of this kind of baggage that I'm talking about comes from St. Augustine, who was not a Christian for a good chunk of his life. And then one day he was so depressed and so at the end of his rope, he took a Bible from a friend, went out into his garden, threw the Bible against the tree, and it fell to the ground, and it opened to certain verses from Paul's letter to the Romans. And he read those verses, and they were the exact verses that he needed to read, and he converted to Christianity, and the rest is history. Now, every time that Augustine read those verses from Romans later in his life, I bet you he thought back to that original experience with those verses from Romans. So in our second level of reading, we bring all of our personal baggage to the text. That's both baggage that has to do with the Bible specifically and all of the other experiences of our lives. Perhaps we're talking here about all of the ways that we are defined as people, male, female, rich, poor, any of the categories that we use to define ourselves. These different categories can influence our reading. So as we move from that critical level to the personal level, we use all of the experiences and everything about who we are, all that baggage, to read the text. When we move from the second level, this personal level, to the third level, what I call the blank slate level, we remove all of that baggage from the equation. Now, we're not just ignoring that baggage. We're not make-believing that it doesn't exist. We're choosing to set it aside just for now, and instead of reading the Bible through our own lens, through our own personal history, we allow this blank slate, holy naivete to come over us. And we open ourselves up for the words on the page of the Bible to encounter us. Instead of us bringing our personal history to the Bible, we allow the Bible to speak to our personal history. And we do this by creating in ourselves this holy naivete or this blank slate mentality. Rather than having a personhood that is already full, we empty ourselves of all of that personal history and we allow God to fill us with the Word. This blank slate mentality is not always too easy to kind of get into. So I want to offer a suggestion of one of my favorite ways of reading the Bible. It's called Lexie Oh Davina. It's been around a really long time, you can tell because it has a Latin name. Lexie Oh Davina basically means holy reading. I learned how to do Lexie Oh Davina back when I was in college, and so this is how it was transmitted to me. I'm glad I get to share it with you. First, say a prayer to God for openness while you're reading. Second, spend an entire minute in silence. A minute is a lot longer than you think it is. Think about brushing your teeth. It takes a while, but do that full minute in silence. Then read your passage once, very slowly, out loud. Then spend an entire second minute in silence, and then read it again. After the second reading, take another full minute of silence, and then think about a word or a phrase in the passage that shimmered for you, a word or phrase that jumped out, that spoke to your heart. Meditate on that word or phrase, think about it, allow it to really embed itself down deep into your soul. Think about that word, meditate on it, pray with that word or phrase for as long as you need to. Then have another minute of silence, and then read the passage a third time and insert that word or phrase back into the passage. See how your meditation has changed the way the text has encountered you. Then have a final full minute of silence, and then thank God for your reading. This is how I do Lexie Oh Davina, and it really is a fine way to reach that blank slate mentality when we're reading, that third level of the progression. I find this three-level approach to reading very helpful because we can separate how we are encountering the text over the course of the three and then put them into conversation with each other. If we try to do all three at once, the messages that we are sending to the text and the text is sending to us can get a little garbled. So we start at that first level, the critical level, in which we bring all of the historical context, all of those different resources we've been talking about for the last 7 weeks to bear on the text. Then we move into the personal level. We bring ourselves to the text. And then we move to that third level in which we allow the text to bring itself to us. We open ourselves, we empty ourselves, and let the text fill us. Then we can move back through to the other levels if we want to keep studying and see how that encounter, that text encountering us, speaks to our personal history and speaks to our critical understanding of the text. I think this is a very authentic way to read the Bible, and I commend it to you. After today, we have 2 weeks left of 10 lenses. I hope you're enjoying the course so far, and next week we're going to come back, and I'm going to talk about reading the Bible out loud. Until next time.